Well, I ran after human traffickers. I was 14. That's how I looked like, and that's one picture my sister found recently when we lost my father a few months ago. And in his office, my sister stumbled on that picture. I did not know that I had a picture when I was still young, because the rebels took everything, including the pictures we had hung on the wall. So my father had also clung on that one. I still remember that day like it was yesterday. Very ruthless. The Lord's Resistance Army stormed my village, my home. My father at first was reluctant to run because he said, "This is my home, where am I going?" But only to realize they were looking for virgins, they are looking for young girls. And from the neighborhood, we could see that they are dragging the girls away. And they didn't want those who were married, because they wanted virgins. So looking around and seeing he has 6 of us, we had to run. So what followed next happened very quickly. You can imagine running to where you don't know you're going. It is cloudy with dust. The whole village is running. It's no longer about who is running with you, but you're just following a crowd. You don't know where your other siblings are. You don't have that protection. But you have to go through that treacherous journey, which for me ended up in that internally displaced camp at a Catholic mission. But being there, I realized I was among the lucky ones, because by the end of the 19-year war, UNICEF estimates 20,000 children were abducted by the Lord's Resistance Army. I was very angry growing up about the people who robbed me of my childhood. They destroyed my home. I lost that protective environment of a family. But I realized as I grew older and wiser that I have to channel this negative energy somewhere. And for me, it was into school, because first of all, I was a girl, and where I come from, girls were rendered useless, not worth an education. So I said, okay, let me show them. So I channeled that energy into education. I said, I'm going to do what boys do. If boys go to school, I'll do it, as long as there's an opportunity. I channeled that energy in saying, what can I do about those other children and those other people who are trafficked? That's way before even Palermo Protocol. I decided to study. Ended up, by then, by my time, because I'm old, there was only one university in Uganda, and you had to compete with the boys. So I made it to university, at Makerere University. I said I won't stop there. I kept learning. Went to Uganda Management Institute, and then finally one time at a notice board, because I had joined the immigration service then, I saw an opportunity to become a Fulbright scholar. I enrolled, went on to study afterwards forced migration at Oxford, and then most recently Harvard Kennedy School. And throughout that journey, I decided to specialize migration, human trafficking. And unlike the Lord's Resistance Army that kidnapped, today's trafficker mainly uses deceit to attract their victims. And I see this every day in my course of work. That picture is actually a picture of me responding to a trafficker. And I remember asking him, that was the question I was asking, why do you do this to people's daughters? Because he still had the forms and all that, and he was taking young girls to the Middle East, promising them jobs, but they end up in exploitation, sexual exploitation. I asked him, why do you do this to people's children? He said, it's their parents who bring them to me. Then I asked him, supposing they brought to you your own daughter. He responded with silence. Traffickers feel about their daughters, but they can easily traffic others. So maybe he had never thought of it that way. Or maybe if he was asked those tough questions, maybe he would also start thinking twice that, hey, it can actually also happen to my daughter. And today, in this world, 40.3 million people are trafficked annually. That's International Labour Organization statistics of 2017. They target low-skilled workers, especially women and children. 99% are lured and end up in prostitution. 58% in other sectors, including domestic work. And that is the challenge we keep having, even in this country, when they do that. I have been in this field to stop human trafficking for almost over a decade now. I train law enforcement to identify victims and investigate. I create awareness. I go around the world advocating for survivors and victims. But what I've learned in these years doing this job is what I want to share with you today. One of the things I've learned is that you cannot stop trafficking if you don't take good care of survivors. You do not expect a survivor seeking justice going to court when they are sick, sometimes out of sexual exploitation, when they are hungry, when they don't have shelter over their head, and you expect them to go and testify in court. They are fearful for retaliation from their attackers. I have been stranded with survivors so many times as I respond. One of them, whom I won't name just to protect her, she had listened to me in an awareness campaign and recorded my number. So one time, it was past midnight, she called my phone, frantic and crying. I asked her, where are you? Until I told her to go to the petrol station, gas station, so that I can locate her. This is a girl who was circumcised when she was young. And before she healed, they married her off. Endured years of abuse. This is what happens to children. And when she finally flee from her husband, she went somewhere she didn't want anyone to find her. But unfortunately, she ran short of money. And where did she go next? To her family. The parents were furious. She brought shame to the family. How do you run away from your husband? They even call her a certain name where they call, women who have shamed families. And that night, they were threatening to return her back. She was beaten by her own mother, and that's when she fled. When I went to pick her up, I had nowhere to take her. Like I said, looking around for shelters is a challenge. Because I had nowhere to take her, I brought her to my house, where I stay with my mother and my sister. And when they woke up, they found somebody else. But they are used to that. They know that they can go to bed, and the next day they'll find Agnes, I've brought somebody else. But what do? They welcome. But knowing how she was, she felt like she had invaded our space. We tried our best to make her comfortable. I am trying to figure out a lot about her situation so that she calms down before I start the interviews. And the fourth day when I went back home, I found when she was gone. That pained me to the core. And that's the reason why I built a rehabilitation center for survivors. That's the center. I can't tell you where it is because I don't want traffickers to know. I'm excited that, it's complete, and I'm looking for beds. People are donating and donating things in kind and helping me draft programming. So it's going to be a home for some girls who have nowhere to go. Another thing I learned in this work is that you don't expect to tell unemployed people that traffickers are dangerous without giving them jobs, without taking care and facilitating their humane movement. When you have stringent policies on migration where you only favor people who have lots of money by your standard, what happened to the stories of having a dream? When I was in the US, many people would say, I had an American dream. My parents were parents of immigrants. They came with money or just little money. But these days, you can't just show up at immigration control and say that I don't have money, but I'm strong, I can work hard and make it in life. What happened? Don't we have people like that? Didn't we all come from somewhere low and just rose up? Didn't somebody help us and pick us up? Let's support low-skilled workers. Let's take that money away from traffickers. They make $150 million annually, money stolen from victims of trafficking and governments alike, because they don't even pay taxes. People keep telling me maybe this job is, too big. They even challenge me that, isn't it dangerous for you to work in this field, a woman? But I tell them, or I throw it out, I say, the question I really want us to ask traffickers is that, is it dangerous? Are you fearful to traffic people? If they say no, then we have a lot of work to do. They should be the ones scared to do it. But we have to unite in action to make that happen. And you don't have to be in law enforcement, like me. Because that's one thing I said, if I got scared, that would be satisfaction. I've been in situations, but fortunately some of the situations are not really because traffickers are making me scared. One of them, I was on a mission to South Sudan to rescue children of trafficking. I remember we were hit by flash floods. I was the only woman with 3 gentlemen. And that was the beginning of the journey, because definitely I couldn't film the next because I almost died. We kept walking towards the border, and the flash floods kept rising. And the commissioner of police, Binoga, I'll say his name, he saved my life. He clung on a stick he was holding as the floods were sweeping me away. He didn't let go. The other gentleman was behind. He later confessed to me that he was waiting. If Agnes disappeared, then he would know he would not get there. But that was just the fun now after it happened. But situations like those just energize me. And you don't have to go through those situations. I tell people, if you have a big mouth like I do, you talk about it. If you can sing, you sing about trafficking to create awareness. If you are into policy, create policies that favor low-skilled workers to move. Policies that make it difficult for people to traffic. If you have money, support organizations and people within your community and those survivors. And if you're a trafficker out there are better ways to make money than trafficking people. Tap into your gifting, that talent you have, and join us to stop human trafficking. Thank you.